talk about is if you have businesses in Canada or you are working with businesses in Canada, a lot of people ask me, oh, someone can just, I need someone to invest in my business. How much is it for them to get immigration? There's a general view oftentimes that you can kind of buy your way towards permanent residence. Uh, in actual fact, the immigration system has evolved so that it's not just a matter of someone giving you money or buying their way towards permanent residence. What we really are looking at today is for people to invest and actively participate in a Canadian business. Okay? So when you're looking for investors, it's not just about how much money they have. Certainly money isn't, if they don't have money, they can't invest in your business, but you're also looking at someone who you're going to be working with. We're also going to, if you want to attract someone, you also need to make sure that you take their needs into account. And so today I'm going to run through a few scenarios as to how someone can immigrate to Canada. And that should inform you as to how you can meet their needs. Immigration is often priority number 1 or 2, right? And so if you cannot meet their immigration needs, they can't work in Canada, they can't stay in Canada, they're not going to invest. So we're going to talk about that today. And we are also going to be talking about possible scenarios and structures where, because a lot of the immigration requirements are that the overseas investor owns a majority share in the company. And what if you don't want to give them a majority share in your company or a significant part of your company? You just want to do business with them. How do we then work in that way? Okay. So one of the first topics I want to talk about are work permits. Oftentimes, right now, we don't apply directly for permanent residence. We apply first for a work permit for someone to come and work in Canada. And when we do so, the main principal applicant can work legally in Canada, but their spouse, they're also able to get an open work permit. The dependent children, they can go to public school for free without paying tuition fees. That's only up to grade 12. University colleges, they have to pay the international fees. And the entire family is eligible for OHIP. So what we have here is basically a way for someone to come to Canada quite quickly. Work permits can be as quickly from Hong Kong if you don't need a visa, pre-COVID times, pre-travel restriction times. They can just come and apply for the work permit often at the airport, right? It's not a matter of waiting for years before they can come. So this is a way for them to quickly come to Canada, for them to be able to settle with their families, to start working, and then work towards permanent residence. So this is one of the categories that we often work with on the work permits, called the intra-company transferee category. In order to qualify for this, the Canadian company and the overseas company should be related. We're looking at majority ownership, around 51% ownership, right? So the overseas company can own 51% to 100% of the Canadian company, or the Canadian company can, vice versa, own the overseas company as well. The employees to be transferred must have worked with the company for at least a year, either at the senior manager or executive manager. So if someone owns their company, they can transfer themselves to the related Canadian company. And the maximum time, normally the first work permit may be issued, for example, for 1 year if it's a startup in Canada, right? But we can extend it under this category for senior managers for up to 7 years, and for specialized knowledge workers for up to 5 years. So hopefully during this time, we can then move them towards permanent residence. Okay. The owner-operator LMIA, is another kind of work permit we can do. So the intra-company, they should already have an overseas company that is multinational that we can actually create a subsidiary or a related company in Canada. Owner-operator is something where we're creating a new company or they're buying over a Canadian company. Again, we're looking at majority ownership. Okay, and this way, it's not a company owning this, it's the applicant themselves own 51% of the company. So an LMIA normally is something where, for example, if someone wants to get a work permit, an employer in Canada has to advertise and recruit Canadians. And if they can't, then they can apply for LMIA as an opinion, it's a labor market impact assessment. So they go to the ESBC and they try to get an LMIA to show that they can't find a Canadian to do work. The owner-operator LMIA is an exception to the recruitment because obviously someone's not going to recruit for someone to take over their own business. The criteria, instead of saying that they can't find a Canadian to do the job, is that they must be able to demonstrate that their work will result in creation of jobs in Canada, okay? And that they can demonstrate that they have enough funds to pay for the salaries as well, okay? This business is viable. So this is another way for us to get a work permit for the applicant. When we go to the permanent residence, this is where we build on the steps for the work permit. So one of the most famous permanent residence ways is called the express entry. And what it is in the first stage, if someone qualifies, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can apply. They get a series of points and they get put into the pool. And then the government has a draw every 2 weeks or so where they announce a number. If someone has enough points to get past the line that the government has announced, then they can get an invitation to apply. Then they can actually apply. If they don't, then they stay in the pool. And they can stay in the pool forever. Well, they can stay in the pool for 1 year and then they'll expire, right? But it's no good just to qualify and stay in the pool. It's not a lottery. They have to be over the line of the draw, okay? And oftentimes what we find with people who are overseas, who have no Canadian experience, who may be a little bit older, their English may not be really, really super high, is that they don't have enough points to compete with the people who are here in Canada who have Canadian experience. A lot of students have studied and get points for that, okay? So what can happen is if we can get them a work permit or LMIA and an LMIA, if they have executive management work in Canada, they can get 200 points. If they have specialized knowledge, they get 50 points, okay? Now, that should be enough to get them over the line and get them an invitation to apply. If they have an invitation to apply, it will take normally around 6 months for them to get permanent residence. So one of the main things, though, to understand about this category is that language is key, right? If we have people from places like China and their English is not high enough, they can't pass the exam for IELTS, everybody has to do the exam, and they can't pass a certain level, then they can't even enter the pool. So for express entry, we're looking at a CLB level of 7, which for the IELTS exam would be 6.0 for the IELTS exams. The second way we could do it is through a startup visa. So the startup visa is where someone has an innovative business that they like to come to Canada and bring it to Canada. The key for this, though, is that they need to be accepted by a designated institution. So an angel investor group, incubator, or VC. And so in order to do so, they need to be able to have an angel investor be willing to invest 75,000, be accepted into one of the incubators that are on the list. It all has to be on a list by the government or VC. VCs are usually pretty much bigger. It's 200,000 investors. Okay, and so this could be, though, something that we can work with if they have a good enough business. And but in order to pass again, they have to pass the language exams of 5 CLB, 5, lower than express entry, but you still have to have some English skills. The final one that we can look at is the OIMP Entrepreneur Program. Now, I do find with this program that it's oftentimes not as attractive as the other ones. The other ones, you're looking at 6 months to a year to get your permanent residence if you can qualify. For this one, what happens is once you can qualify, you will enter into a pool where the government then Ontario government can then select you out. If they do select you out, you can submit your business plan, and then you will get a work permit. But then you have to work in there for around a year and a half to show that you fulfilled the terms of your business plan before the Ontario government will give you the nomination certificate, and then you can apply for permanent residence with the federal government, which takes around a year and a half. So the whole process takes around 4 years or so. And a lot of times people will say, well, it's not worth it for me to do this. The only thing about this is if someone's English level is not that high, the English level for this program is CLB 4. So for someone whose English is not great, this is something that we can do. In terms of the business structure, I just wanted to quickly talk about that. The business structure that, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to give, 100% or 51% or even that much of my business. I just want to do business with someone, okay? So what I might suggest that we do is, let's say you have the Chinese business, okay? I'm just saying overseas business, Acme China, okay? And the owner of that Acme China wants to come to Canada and do business with you. What I often suggest is, so this is you, Canadian Co, okay? What I often suggest is instead of you guys doing Acme China and Canadian Co doing business together and forming the entity or they buying a part of your company and you don't want to give them 51% and control the interest, what we do is this. We have Acme China majority own their own subsidiary. Then we can transfer them over to Canada. And then for you guys then to have a joint venture or to have a separate entity where then you guys can do whatever you like with the joint venture there as well. I think my time is up. And so this is my information. If you have any more questions, I'll be happy to speak with you guys about that.